So we're finally here. It's finally time to talk about John Carpenter's original classic from 1978, Halloween and the Mask. This version of the Mask, of course, being a Nightowl Creep, rehauled by Rodney Parm. There are some phenomenal Halloween 1 masks out there, done by many different artists, Nags, Don Posts, but this Night Owl Creep, rehauled by Rodney Parm, holds its own with any of them. It's among any of the best I've ever seen. I've already done mask reviews on most of the masks in the series, and you may be wondering why I waited so long to do the original. And the reason is simple. This is the most important horror movie to come out in the last 60 years. Is there really anything new that I can say or anything else that I can point out that hasn't already been pointed out in the last 43 years this movie's been around? Probably not, but I'm going to do my best. Other than Psycho, it's probably the most important horror movie ever made. But even Psycho, which itself influenced Halloween, could not have left the kind of impact that Halloween did on the horror genre moving forward. Halloween really and truly was the catalyst of the slasher genre explosion of the late 1970s and early 1980s. Not only that, the massive boom of horror movies in general of the 1980s can be attributed to Halloween's success. And modern day, with two new movies on the horizon, the Halloween series is still the most relevant and most timeless of any of its contemporaries. Halloween started off as a simple idea by producer Irwin Yablans of a killer stalking babysitters. The working title for this picture was going to be The Babysitter Murders. John Carpenter and Deborah Hill were brought in to co-write the script, and John Carpenter was tasked with directing the film. Yablans also came up with the idea of the film taking place on Halloween night as John Carpenter continued to pen his script for The Babysitter Murders. Yablans also must be credited for inevitably having the idea to change the name of the movie to Halloween. When it came down to the decision of the killer's mask, ultimately that mostly fell on Tommy Lee Wallace, and the two main choices for the film were an Emmett Kelly clown mask and the painted white William Shatner Captain Kirk mask that we all know and love today. When they first brought out the shape in the Emmett Kelly mask, everyone there kind of agreed that the mask was creepy and eerie. But when they saw their killer in the modified Captain Kirk mask, there was no denying it, and they knew that they had something special. Imagine, if you will, for a second, an alternate reality where Halloween doesn't exist, and instead we have a movie called The Babysitter Murders with a killer wearing an Emmett Kelly clown mask. This very nearly did happen. If 2 or 3 chance creative decisions had just happened to go the other way, that's what we would have wound up with. I don't think there ever would have been a second movie, or let alone a franchise. Just think about that for a moment. I bring this up for 2 reasons. First and foremost, because yes, this is a mass channel, but also because as great and as brilliant as John Carpenter is and was, there were some people behind the scenes that made some very critical decisions regarding this picture that I rarely hear get the proper recognition in videos about Halloween 1. With a budget of just $320,000, the film was financed mostly by producer Mustafa Akkad, $20,000 of which went to the great Donald Pleasance, who played Dr. Loomis for 5 days of filming, because that's all the time they could afford him for. Deborah Hill was tasked with writing much of the dialogue of Laurie Strode and Annie Brackett and Linda Vanderklok, the 3 female babysitter protagonists, because Obviously, she was a female and she had worked as a babysitter in her youth. John Carpenter, of course, wrote all of the Dr. Loomis dialogue, creating the greatest side character in horror movie history, in my opinion. The writing of the character Dr. Loomis and Donald Pleasance's delivery of the character was nothing short of brilliant. And with a non-speaking villain, the performance of Dr. Loomis was just as important as the presence of the Shape himself. Through his writing and directing and suspense building, John Carpenter was able to create a character larger than life without ever speaking a word. The embodiment of evil, an unstoppable force of nature. A man, but more than a man. Human, but with a supernatural edge. Another reason why John Carpenter was so brilliant was because not only did he know what to show you, he knew what not to show you. He knew that the imagination is more frightening than anything you can put on camera. The fact that he left so much mystery to this character is one of the most terrifying things about him. The John Carpenter score for this movie is also, in a way, a living, breathing character in this movie as well. It is so ominous and effective that the score is just as important as Michael Myers himself. There's a lot more that I could say about John Carpenter's Halloween, but somebody else has probably already said it better. John Carpenter's Halloween is one of the greatest movies ever made, one of the greatest horror movies ever made, and a landmark movie in the horror genre.